Yo guys, it's JJ here, and today I'm going to be walking you through how Wheezy makes dope samples, especially ethnic samples, for people like Gunna and of course the YSL clan. So, before we get into this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We're on the way to 1,000 subs, and as you guys can see, we are hella close, so got a little giveaway when it happens. And of course, before we get into it now, free drum kits down below. I'm going to say less, and let's just start. So first thing you need to know, we are on a scale of F minor, and we are doing this at a 130 BPM because that's kind of like the Gunna / YSL sound range. The first thing we are using is a VST called Contact 7, as we are all familiar with. From the Efto World Bank, I am using the Koto key. Sounds really good, super dope sound, and of course it's very ethnic, so gotta use it. And now, looking at the first part of the melody, as you guys can see, it's essentially just a 2-bar looped over, but let me just break it down. First things first, we got ourselves 2 chords playing here, one here and one here, and they're essentially the same because, as you guys can see, your root note's a F and your root note here is a C. So when a note is just 5 semitones below or above, it usually sounds quite good, and that's kind of what I thought sounded nice. So if I take this down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as you can see, it's essentially just the same minor chord, but just playing at different pitch. But of course, I broke it down because I decided to add this nice little G instead of a G sharp, you know, giving it a bit more of a vibe, a bit more of a bounce. And of course, I added this nice little F here. Had another little 2 chords introduced to the end, but I made this nice little cool roll. And the way I did it was, I went onto the magnet tool, went onto a quarter step, right click, and scroll down to 1. And if you click one of these notes, as you guys can see, you could just drag them in nicely. And then what I did was, by looking down where the velocities are, if you hold right click on the note and you drag the rest down, it kind of follows it along. So I had this nice little thing leading up into the C sharp, which played a nice little major chord, and then again it just dropped back into the minor chord that we had here. And all I did was just copy and paste it, making it a full 4-bar. And then of course, last but not least, clicking Alt R to randomize the velocities, making it sound more human, and clicking Alt S to strum any of the chords. And now this is what the melody sounds like. And there you'll have it. And one thing I forgot to mention, of course, at the second part of this 4-bar, I had this nice little 1-2 note quick play. I forgot to bring that up. But time for the mix. First thing I did was get myself an EQ, cutting off pretty much all the lows, and just dug some frequencies that were a bit too harsh. Next up, I added some Valhalla vintage verb, just to create a bit of ambient, and also, you know, reverb is needed. So these are the presets I did alongside it. And then last but not least, I just started separating the sound around 30%, just to widen it a bit in the mix. And of course, when you guys watch this tutorial, if you have headphones on, you'll really be able to tell what I mean when I start to separate all the different sounds. Next up, in the melody, we got ourselves another Contact 7, except this time I am using the Noir Bank and I'm using just the basic Noir Pure. And if you all don't have this, just use any piano, of course. So when looking at the melody that I made here, it's quite simple to be honest, but obviously I'll just walk you through it. First things first, looking at the first part of the 4-bar, we start off with this nice little chord which we had in the same part when it came to our Koto melody. And then on top of that, I added the second chord that actually came in, as you can see, but just a little bit higher rather than below. And then all I did was just play about with the G and the G sharp, just making it sound nice. Then just copy and paste it over. And then if I hold right click and then use my scroller wheel to go down, I reached this nice little slicer tool, and all I did was actually just slice up some of the notes, as you guys can see, to make it sound really nice and give it a bit more like a fluid progression without having to add any different notes. And of course, obviously for a bit of variation, all I did was have this nice little B up here rather than the G sharp or the G. And then of course, another one here. And the final thing I did for the melody was just click Alt R to randomize the velocities to yet again make it just sound more human. And now without further ado, this is what the piano sounds like. And there you'll have it. As you can see, it sounds very nice, elegant, gives it that kind of Wheezy vibe with them ethnic beats. But now, time to walk you through the effect. Yes, again, we got ourselves another EQ. Again, all the lows being chopped off. Few frequencies were ducked, but I really ducked a lot of the highs. And then I added a fair amount of reverb using Valhalla vintage verb, just because I wanted the sound to be a bit more spacious, obviously as you guys just heard then. And then last but not least, I started separating this melody 50% just to make it really wide in the mix and sound like a nice little blend within the Koto. And now, for the final part of this ethnic melody, you can't go wrong with using a flute. So I got myself Omnisphere, got myself a preset called the Ceramic Bolimba flute. I know I butchered that, but that's the flute I used. And now when looking at the pattern, again, it's a very simple one, just because we have a nice simple counter melody going on here. Not trying to make it too complex, because, you know, Gunna likes to flow over this kind of stuff effortlessly. And now to bring the melody down, we we obviously start with an F, of course, because you know the root note. Taking it up to a C, then a D sharp, just climbing up the scale. Taking it back down to an F. And for some variation at the end of the 4 bar, I have this nice little like roll that goes down, kind of like a stair thing. C sharp into the C, down to the G sharp, and back up to the B. And the final thing I did to this melody was just click Alt R, yet again, to make it just sound human. And when having a quick look at the effects, I've yet again added another EQ, cutting off some highs and looking some frequencies, and all the lows just being cut off. And then again, another instance of a hella vintage reverb with a fair amount of reverb thrown on. And now, without further ado, this is what the full melody sounds like. And there you'll have it. And now, time to break down the drums. And first of all, we got ourselves, of course, a simple clap pattern. We were pretty much doing this every third measure of a beat. Simple clap, again, basic pattern. And next up, of course, because it's a Wheezy beat, of course, you gotta have this nice little bounce for your hi-hats, especially when Gunna's gonna be going over this, or any of the YSL gang. So as you guys can see, it's essentially just a 2-bar looped over, but then I just drop a note instead of having it up here. So when we look into this 2-bar loop, first thing you need to know is that I went onto the magnet tool, and then I think I used 1/6 beat. Indeed I did. So first we started off with a nice little simple, you know, regular hi-hat bounce, adding a hi-hat in and then 2 more hi-hats again. Then using the paintbrush tool, clicking 1 note, I just dragged these notes along. And then to create this little roll here, I went back onto the magnet tool, went up to a 3rd step, dragged it in, and then using the right click, I just dragged these notes down, adjusting the velocity here. And then all I actually did was just copy and paste this thing over, making a full bar, with the variation just being taking this note down 1 pitch. And without further ado, this is what the clap and the hi-hat sound like. And there you'll have it. When you hear it, you already get this nice little YSL vibe, of course, with the whole ethnic melody going on, and then the hi-hats can really add to that flow. So, onto the 808 and the kick. First thing you'll need to know is I'm using the Wheezy 808, and this can be found on any Reddit. So, going on to the 808 and the kick, first thing you'll need to know is I'm using the Wheezy 808, and this can be found all over Reddit for free, so make sure to get that. And as well as that, this is the pattern I've got going. Obviously, I'm just keeping it simple, spaced out, just like how Wheezy always does it. And as well as that, just following the root notes, as you can see, from F to a C, going back to the F, and then from a C to a C sharp. And then the final thing I did to both my kick and my 808, click Control A, and use your scroller wheel to max your velocities out. The reason I do so is because it makes your 808 and your kick sound harder and punchier in the mix, cuts through very nicely, and of course, when looking at the kick pattern, it's essentially the 808 pattern, but just in the same note, and of course, my velocities are maxed out for that maximum punchiness. So without further ado, this is what the 808 and the kick sound like. And there you'll have it. And now onto the final few sounds in the drums that just add a bit more flair and spice to the whole beat. First things first, we got the open hat, which comes in once every 2 bar, as you guys can see right here at the beginning. And then next up, we got a cymbal sound. This comes in once every 4 bar, as you guys can see again, very simple and straightforward. And then last but very much not least, we got this nice little snare pattern, which really brings out this whole Wheezy vibe to this ethnic beat. So when I made this pattern, first thing I did was go on my magnet tool, go in a half step, and then all I did was just start with a snare here, and add these 2 snares up at a higher pitch, but as you can see, I've already dug the velocities as they play, giving it a bit more of a nice bounce, and it sounds really good. Then, as I've previously stated, to get this nice little roll, click a note, click your right click, and then drag your mouse down to the paintbrush, and then again, I just drag the note, use that right click again to change the velocities, and that's how you'll achieve this. And then all I did again was play these 2 notes back to back, but going from low to high, and then I've just copy and pasted the whole snare pattern over to create the full 4 bar. Except in the end, instead of having this, I take it down a few pitches, as you guys can see, to give it a bit of variation. And now, without further ado, this is what the full beat sounds like. And there you'll have it. But before I wrap this video up, let me walk you all through the beat arrangement. The first thing you all need to know is I've got my intro right here, starting off with an 8 bar, which is just the koto playing, and then introducing the keys towards the second half, just to give it a bit of a vibe where it's like, oh, okay, this is going to be coming in later. And now moving on to the chorus, as you guys can see, starting off with the first 8 bar, we pretty much have all of the drums coming in alongside the koto, except I didn't have the reverse open hat play. Then in the second half of the chorus, introduce the keys as well as the reverse open hat. And now, of course, we are on to the verse. 3 8 bars, that's how we do it, which is a total of 24 bars. But starting off with the first one, we've got ourselves the basic drums playing, of course. Simple pattern, cut off the hi-hats at the end a bit. And then moving on to the main section, I introduce a new melody, which is of course the flute, you know, keeping it a bit interesting, not recycling the same sound over. And then as well as that, I introduced the snare roll. And then going into the pre-hook, which is the 8 bar just before the chorus, I've pretty much taken out everything apart from the hi-hat, the koto, and then introduced the keys and the 808 in the second half of the 8 bar. And all I did was just copy all of this, paste it over again to get this whole thing here. And then I just copy and pasted the chorus once again, drag it to the end, giving me a structure of intro, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, and then another chorus. So a total of 3 choruses and 2 verses and 1 intro. And there you'll have it. That's how Wheezy makes dope ethnic beats for people like Gunna and the YSL clan. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and of course, take it easy. Peace.